Hey y'all, I'm so glad you're joining us tonight for this national update and call to action. We're going to jump right into it because we do not have time to waste. So much is going on. And I'm so thrilled to be joined by our DNC chair, Ken Martin, and our esteemed leader, Hakeem Jeffries. How y'all doing?
Good to be with you.
We're doing great. We're doing awesome. Thanks for doing this, Reese.
Thank you for having me. Okay, listen, breaking news. We in danger. America. We have seen the news, which has now been confirmed by the White House, that our Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth, along with others, including Vice President J.D. Vance, were in a signal chat, which I will add is not where you exchange classified top secret information, planning out the details of a launch on Yemeni Houthis militia. That happened for a course of several days, including hours. And the reason why we know about this is because they accidentally added Jeff Goldberg from The Atlantic. So I just have to say, what is going on? What are we going to do about the fact that this kind of top secret information is being exchanged out of the proper channels?
It's a great question. It was an extraordinary breach of protocol, jeopardizing America's national security. But I think what it highlights is that this is an administration filled with incompetent and unqualified individuals. At the same time, they want to gaslight the American people and say they're all about merit. They're not about merit, which is why the attacks on diversity, equity, and inclusion are all phony. Because at the end of the day, diversity, equity, and inclusion are about making sure everybody has an opportunity to be able to allow their God-given talent and ability to be utilized free of discrimination.
Mm-hmm.
So this group wants to lecture America about merit, and Pete Hegseth is the most unqualified defense secretary ever in American history. And now that incompetence is jeopardizing America's national security. So in the Senate on Tuesday, there's going to be a hearing, which will be open and available to the American people, held by the Senate Intelligence Committee. And then on Wednesday in the House Intelligence Committee will have a hearing led on our side by Congressman Jim Himes to get to the bottom of what happened, why the heck did this happen, and of course, how do we prevent this type of breach from ever happening again, and exploring what the consequences of this failure should be.
Right. Now, I agree with you that there's incompetence, because how do you add an editor to your signal chat? But the fact that it was done on a signal chat, there's a certain deliberate way of skirting around the system. And we're seeing that pattern with this administration. There's incompetence, but there's also an intent to flout the laws that would normally land somebody else in jail. Are we going to talk about that part, about the fact that they know better and they're choosing this route after butter emails us to death and private servers? They're doing this knowing that's not protocol.
Yeah, it's a really important observation. And I think what we are seeing from this administration to be comprehensive is that there's incompetence and then there's arrogance.
There we go.
And the arrogance piece of this relates to believing that they're above the law and they're above the norms and they're above the standards that every other administration has been held to and lived by in the best interest of the American people. So certainly in the context of the hearings that are going to take place tomorrow and Wednesday on the Hill, which is just the beginning of a march toward accountability.
Right.
And let me just say, as a Minnesotan, Pete Hegseth is the worst export from Minnesota that we've ever seen, right? And let me be honest about something. His actions, his very undisciplined way of communicating put Americans' lives at risk, right? And he needs to either resign or be fired, because at the end of the day, I want you to think about what these folks, Elon Musk and these teenage Doge brothers are going around to the Social Security Administration, to the IRS. They're accessing all of this private and confidential information on millions of Americans. If they can't even keep our war secrets private and confidential, how in the hell are we expected to believe that they're going to keep our private information confidential, right? There's more to this story that needs to be told. And at the end of the day, there needs to be accountability. And I'm glad that Leader Jeffries and the House Democrats and folks in Congress are going to do that. But there's a lot more questions that need to be answered. And Pete Hegseth needs to resign or be fired by Donald Trump.
Absolutely. At a minimum, the National Security Advisor, Michael Waltz, he's the one that added people to the chat. He needs to be fired
Yes.
too. In normal times, that would happen, but we have to keep calling for it, regardless of how arrogant they are and they think that they don't have to follow these rules. All right, let's move on though, because we are here because there's a call to action. Project 2025 is in full swing. Obviously, they're racking up the wins, but I want to call this Project Next 8 Days because there are special elections happening. And there are also, I should also mention, there are municipal and statewide elections happening across the country. Louisiana has some big constitutional amendments up that are going to be voted on. But there needs to be a particular focus on 3 races in particular we want to highlight, which is the 2 congressional special elections, as well as Wisconsin. So, Chair Martin, I want to throw to you first. I know that it's a heavy lift in Florida. Why are the Democrats focusing on this? Why is it so important to have a show of force in these?
Well, it's really important. You know, look, special elections are low turnout affairs and anything can happen. What we've seen in recent weeks is Donald Trump's approval ratings, his favorability ratings are dropping quite precipitously. As a result, what we're seeing is independent voters who are moving our way and even Republicans who are pissed off and frustrated by what they're seeing out of this administration who promised they were going to lower people's costs, make their lives more affordable, improve their lives. They haven't done anything except focus on making more billionaires more money. At the end of the day, these races, I've seen us lose special elections we were supposed to win, and I've seen us win special elections we were supposed to lose, meaning that anything's possible right now with what we're seeing. Now, look, the 3 races are very important. We have to win that Wisconsin Supreme Court race. And, you know, there's a lot of energy on the ground right now in Florida 1 and Florida 6. So what I would encourage people to do if they want to take action right now is to text 43367, text volunteer to 43367, and our team will send you specific instructions how you can engage from the comfort of your home to help our Democratic candidates, both in Wisconsin and in Florida. It's a critical time right now, and anything's possible.
Right.
Yeah, Reese, these are incredibly important races. And as Ken indicated, the landscape in Florida is tough because these races were chosen for a reason in terms of the Republicans who left these seats. These are deep red Republican seats in Florida, a state, of course, that has been moving against us in recent years. In Florida 1, I think Donald Trump won by 37 points. In Florida 6, the other congressional race, Donald Trump won by about 30 points. So these races shouldn't even be on the board in terms of being competitive, but they are because of how extreme Donald Trump and Republicans have been.
Right.
And so I think we have to keep our foot on the gas pedal, and then we'll put it in the hands of the voters. At minimum, I'm confident we're going to see Democratic overperformance, which in and of itself lays a foundation for us to be able to build upon when the next special election takes place. And so people who are looking for activity to engage in, certainly, as you indicated, project over the next 8 days to get there.
I like that. We're going to get
there
Go ahead.
on April 1st is incredibly important. In Wisconsin, that's a 50-50 race because we know Wisconsin's a 50-50 state.
Yeah.
And we have a strong Democratic candidate. Whoever wins is going to determine who has the majority in the Wisconsin Supreme Court. Why is that important? Because there are gerrymandered congressional lines right now in Wisconsin. Wisconsin's a 50-50 state, as I mentioned, but there are 6 Republicans and only 2 Democrats out of an 8-person delegation because the lines are broken.
Right.
And as soon as possible, we need to be able to revisit that and have fair lines. The only way for that to be even a significant possibility is if you have an enlightened Supreme Court. And so, you know, I think that's an incredibly important race. Elon Musk is spending millions of dollars, but that Supreme Court seat is not for sale.
Yeah.
And the people of Wisconsin have increasingly made that clear, and we've got to run through the finish line.
Yeah, yeah. But we also must speak some truth. There is a lot of energy, angst. There's a degree of demoralization. Terrence Woodbury of Hit Strategies has done some autopsy polling and kind of getting voter sentiment right now.
Yeah.
And Dems are not happy. I mean, people were on my head when I announced it, and I was like, I'll squabble up. I'm not elected, okay? I like to tussle, so I know you guys have to be feeling it. How do you get through to people who want you to show them first before they get activated? Because it's a little bit of a circle. If they don't activate and vote, you're handcuffed in the Congress. And if you don't act in the Congress, then they like, I ain't got nothing for you. Don't ask me for $5. Don't ask me to text anybody. So how do we bridge that gap? Because the cart before the horse is all messed up right now.
Yeah. Well, it's definitely, I mean, from our standpoint, it's all hands on deck. And first and foremost, from the House Democratic standpoint, is that we have these very important legislative fights that we have to win. And first and foremost is the Republican effort to try to jam the largest Medicaid tax cut down the throats of the American people in our country's history. Children will be hurt, families will be hurt, women who rely upon Medicaid, almost half the births in many parts of the country are Medicaid-related births in terms of health insurance. So women will be hurt. Older Americans who rely upon Medicaid for nursing home care and home care will be hurt, and everyday Americans with disabilities. And every single House Democrat strongly opposes these Medicaid cuts.
Right.
Every single House Democrat. And every single Senate Democrat voted against these Medicaid cuts at the end of February as well. We're in total alignment. And we've got to keep the pressure on the Republicans because we only need 3 in the House to actually do the right thing by the people that they represent. And we can stop this Medicaid cut from taking place, just like in 2017, we stopped Republicans from repealing the Affordable Care Act.
That's exactly right. And, look, at the end of the day, I'm proud of what our Democratic attorney generals are doing right now, right, to take the fight to Donald Trump and to file these lawsuits. Democratic governors and Democratic mayors and elected officials are creating safe spaces for targeted communities throughout this country right now. And our members of Congress right now are standing up and leading the fight against these devastating cuts on Medicaid and Social Security. And so the idea that Democrats aren't fighting just isn't accurate. I mean, the DNC has stood up 50 town halls in 50 Republican districts, because if the Republicans aren't going to listen to their constituents, goddamn it, we're going to listen to them, right? We're going to give them an outlet to be heard, because we live in a democracy, and that requires elected officials to actually meet with their constituents and to hear their concerns right now. We were just up in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania, Congressman Raskin and I and others. We heard from constituents loud and clear right now the devastating impacts on their own community and their lives. And what we need to do at this moment is both show the American people, and I'm proud of Leader Jeffries and the Democrats in the U.S. House for standing up and showing them that we're going to fight back. We're going to resist the extremes of this administration, and we're going to fight for our values. But at the end of the day, Reese, we need to focus on winning, which is why we are fiercely focused on making sure that we win back the U.S. House of Representatives and make Leader Jeffries Speaker Jeffries. Why? Because at the end of the day, there's no brownie points when you come in second.
Yeah, there isn't.
You can't build power around our values and improve people's lives unless you're in the majority. And the surest way to stop Donald Trump and Elon Musk and J.D. Vance in their tracks is to win back the U.S. House in 2026. And that's what we're focused on. And again, for folks listening at home, 43367, text volunteer to 43367. If you want to join the fight alongside me and Leader Jeffries and thousands of Democratic elected officials throughout this country, join us. We need everyone. It's not up to Leader Jeffries alone, or Ken Martin alone, or Chuck Schumer alone, or anyone else alone. It's going to take all of us to actually chart a new future for this country.
Ken makes an important point. It's all hands on deck. And, the battle is in the Congress. The battle is in the courts. The battle is for the hearts and minds of the American citizenry. And that's one of the reasons why I'm so thankful that Ken and the DNC are taking these town hall meetings into Republican districts where Republicans are refusing to interact with their own constituents.
Right.
In fact, House Republicans and their leadership has explicitly told Republicans, do not do any town hall meetings. This is extraordinary because they can't defend their position. They can't defend the inaction on the economy. They're not bringing costs down. Costs are going up. Inflation is going up.
Yeah.
And Republicans are crashing the economy in real time and hurting everyday Americans who are paying the price. They can't defend their record on health care because they're trying to take health care away from the American people by devastating Medicaid, ending it as we know it. They certainly can't defend their record on taxes because all of this is being done. We want to cut Medicaid. We want to cut Social Security. We want to cut nutritional assistance to hungry children.
Yeah.
We want to cut veterans benefits so we can pay for massive tax cuts for Elon Musk and extreme MAGA Republican donors. They can't defend their record.
Yeah.
So what the DNC is doing under Ken's leadership, partnering with House Democrats, is that we're taking these town hall meetings all across the country, in blue states, in purple states, and in red states.
I think it's important. I think it's brilliant to go into red districts, but I'm glad that you added the blue and purple states too, because we've seen a tendency for Democrats to try to go after the conversion vote, the swing vote, and not necessarily cultivating the base as much as possible. And I think that we can't wait until October, September 2026 to start showing them, okay, we see y'all again.
That's right.
Yeah.
So what kind of investments are you all making to ensure that the base, those, people want to call them blue mag or whatever situation may be, the people that reliably show up and do the volunteer, that they understand that these efforts are not inspired, are not in opposition or mutually exclusive to cultivating them and hearing them out.
Yeah.
Because I see some Democrats catching some heat.
Yeah.
In their Democratic districts as well.
Yeah. Well, we definitely understand. Listen, what Donald Trump is doing is unleashing this flood the zone strategy, which is designed to disorient people. I mean, in many ways, what we're seeing is the intentional infliction of emotional distress on the American people.
Right.
Because of the daily assault on the economy, the daily assault on Social Security or Medicare or Medicaid, the daily assault on democracy, the daily assault on the American way of life. And so it's, of course, important for the people that we represent to hear from us as well with a high degree of intensity. And that's one of the things that we are encouraging members to do, which is why last Tuesday across the country, House Democrats held a Medicaid Day of Action where there were town hall meetings, in-person visits to hospitals or to nursing homes or the community health clinics, press conferences all over the place, spending time with the people that we represent. There were more than 100 different events alone that House Democrats held last Tuesday, March 18th, this Day of Action. A total of more than 150 events all across the country, and we're just getting started.
Yeah, let me say, when I ran for chair, one of the things I talked about is getting the DNC out of DC. And it's a mindset, right? The idea is we have to get back to connecting with voters in the states. I wrote the 57 state party strategy, this idea that if we're going to turn a red state to a purple state to a blue state, we have to make investments of time, energy, and money. But that's true of blue states as well. There's no such thing, Reese, as a perpetual red state or a perpetual blue state. And you see our own indifference over the years of actually investing in base communities and base areas has seen an erosion of Democratic support there, right?
Definitely.
So we have to organize everywhere. That's my whole motto is when you organize everywhere, you can win anywhere. And we have to start changing how we approach politics, because one of the things you hit on is where we have gotten beat over the last probably 5 to 10 years is the Republican Party's campaign all the time. We show up 3-4 months before an election.
Mm-hmm.
And the first conversation we have with voters is, of course, asking them to do something for our party and our candidates, which is to vote for us.
Right.
That should be the last conversation after we've earned the right to ask them for their vote. The first conversation we have with any voter in any community should be, what are your hopes and dreams for your community? What are your hopes and dreams for your family? We then build support around shared values, and eventually we introduce the idea of voting for our candidates and our party. We should do what we do in Minnesota and other states around the country, where we're investing in year-round organizing.
Mm-hmm.
We're investing in a permanent campaign where we build trust with voters around our shared values. And that's going to take time to do, but we're already standing that up at the DNC. We have to change the way we approach politics. It cannot be a transaction with voters.
Yeah.
It has to be a relationship around shared goals and aspirations. That's what Leader Jeffries is doing all over this country, and our House members. They're traveling throughout this country along with me and other Democratic leaders to make sure that we're not only are we listening, but we're engaging in that conversation earlier than ever before.
Mm-hmm.
It's not, we can't wait until 3 months before an election to start our campaigns.
Yeah.
We have to be campaigning all the time.
Well, I like to hear that, because I feel like credibility is cumulative. It's not a viral moment. It's not just a clip. Sometimes those viral moments don't come, but because people have done the work and they've invested in people in those communities that do the work and they have that credibility, then there's a little bit more of a softening, a little bit less of the dukes up and ready to hear the message. But let's get back to Project Next 8 Days, because you guys have been to work and there's a lot of work. I want you to help connect the dots for people, though, because I'm just going to be honest, not everybody's a bleeding heart liberal. And so they hear Medicaid cuts and they hear food stamp snap, because they're like, what's that got to do with me? I got insurance to my job. So help people understand how critical these programs are in terms of the U.S. economy, the healthcare infrastructure, helping provide those economies of scale, helping those hospitals be there so you, with your private insurance, can go there and get your healthcare. Help people understand that this isn't just charity. This is very much necessary so that our healthcare system doesn't collapse, so that our economy doesn't collapse.
Yeah, no, it's a very important question, that the effort to visit these draconian cuts on the American people in terms of Medicaid will impact everyone, either directly, and about 90 million Americans get their health care through Medicaid. So that in and of itself is about 30% of the American people.
Right.
So everybody's got somebody in their family or in their friendship network, close friendship network, who gets their care from Medicaid from the beginning through to the end of life. Now, that's direct, but because so many different hospitals have such a significant percentage of their patients who rely on Medicaid, or community health clinics, and certainly nursing homes. In fact, about 2/3 of nursing home patients, our parents and our grandparents, rely on Medicaid for their nursing home care. So if you were to devastate Medicaid, what's going to happen is that hospitals will close in your community.
Right.
Nursing homes will close in your community, even if your parents or grandparents aren't on Medicaid.
Yes.
Because they may have private insurance or whatever the case may be. If your nursing home closes down, there's nowhere for you to go.
Right. Right.
If your hospital closes down, there's no care for you to receive. If your doctors leave town, there are no primary care physicians to take care of your children.
Yeah.
So it impacts everyone. And that's one of the reasons why this fight is so important. And this is a clash of visions. Do we want an America that works for everyone? That's the Democratic vision. We want an economy that's affordable, where people can not just survive, but thrive. Not simply get by, but get ahead.
Yeah.
That's our vision. That's the America that we're fighting for. An America where everyone has access to high quality health care, and in America where you have a fair tax system, where millionaires and billionaires are paying their fair share, and that everyday Americans actually can rely upon a tax code that works for them.
Right.
Not just for the privileged few. That's what this fight is all about at the end of the day. Not simply who's got the gavel, who doesn't have the gavel, but what are you willing to do with that gavel? What is your vision for America? We're seeing that the Trump vision, the Republican vision, it's all about the wealthy, the well-off, and the well-connected.
Right.
Not everyday Americans, not working class Americans, not the poor, the sick, the afflicted, not middle class Americans. And those are the people that we're going to fight for as Democrats.
Yeah.
That's right. Well, and let me just say, I mean, I think, that is a question, and that's whose side are you on? Right? Are you on the side of the billionaires and the people who already have so much, the wealthy corporations? Or are you on the side of the people who are just hoping to make it in life, to Leader Jeffries' point, to actually get ahead, right? To maybe save enough money so they can take their kids on a vacation or send their kids to college or retire with dignity or to afford health care, right? I'll tell you a very personal story from my life, right? My mom was 15 years old when she had me. She had 4 kids by the time she was 20, and she struggled mightily. We were very poor, and we were in and out of shelters. And at the end of the day, there wasn't programs like Medicaid. I wouldn't have received health care as a young boy, right? And I don't know if I'd be here. If there weren't programs like SNAP to provide nutrition assistance and food assistance, right? I don't know if I'd be here. And I don't deem it charity, right? We have an obligation to help the least amongst us, to make sure that everyone has an opportunity to succeed in life. That's the American dream, right? What are we really fighting for? The American dream. As Democrats, we know that dream is not afforded equally to everyone, that there are structural barriers and systemic barriers that stand in the way. And our job as Democrats is to remove those. So young people like me, as a young boy, have a chance to succeed. I won't be sitting in this chair right now without a community that gave a damn about me and my family. That's what we're fighting for. It's not charity. At the end of the day, what it is making sure that we're not leaving anyone behind. Everyone in this country deserves a chance to succeed and to achieve their dreams. That's what we're fighting for as Democrats.
Yeah, without a doubt. So specifically, what's on the agenda this week?
So
the next 8 days, Project 8 days.
Right. Well, we just got back to Washington. We had a district work period. We were all across the country last week. And the Republicans are picking up where they left off, which is to try to jam this reckless budget down the throats of the American people. And right now, the House Republicans are in a fight with the Senate Republicans because they can't figure out who wants to be more extreme.
Right, exactly.
Right, at the end of the day. And this budget scheme, because that's what it is, a GOP tax scam, all about trying to reward donors like Elon Musk with a massive tax cut that they do not need or do not deserve. But in the process, to cut the things that matter from the American people and to take those cuts to pay for their tax scam. And so over the next several weeks, perhaps over the next several months, what will preoccupy a lot of the legislative effort is going to be the back and forth battle. Republicans trying to jam their reckless budget down the throats of the American people, and Democrats in the House working with Democrats in the Senate to do everything we can to stop them.
Okay. What's any part of everything?
Yeah. Well, listen, I think the big piece is going to be that, as Abraham Lincoln once said, public sentiment matters.
Okay.
Okay. Public sentiment matters. With it, nothing can fail. Without it, nothing can succeed. And the Republicans are on the wrong side of the American people on all of these issues. On the economy, on Medicaid, on healthcare, on veterans, on creating a real opportunity, as Ken indicated, to pursue the American dream. And part of what we have to do, and we have a saying in the House of Representatives inspired by Speaker Emeritus Pelosi, don't agonize, organize. Right? And every day, every week, every month, we've got to organize around the things that matter. The congressional battle, certainly in court. And it's important, Reese, to point out that Donald Trump is not winning in court, he's losing.
That's right. Thanks to Democrats fighting him in court.
Thanks to Democrats fighting him in court, Democratic attorney generals partnering with advocacy groups, democracy reform groups, organized labor, civil rights groups, working closely and hand in hand on strategy but Democrats on the Hill.
Mm-hmm.
And so Donald Trump is losing. More than 125 or so lawsuits have already been filed
Mm-hmm.
against at least 50, if not more, unconstitutional and unlawful executive orders. And Trump's not winning those fights. The American people are winning.
Right, right.
Now we're going to have to make sure that those decisions get enforced all the way up
Mm-hmm.
through the Supreme Court. And that's one of the things that we're working on as congressional Democrats, making sure that we can hold the Trump administration accountable for not breaking the law and violating court orders. And if that happens, that there are real consequences that back them up from any effort to try to undermine judicial decisions that are made. And by the way, all this talk about impeaching judges who disagree with Donald Trump, it's not happening.
Mm-hmm.
It's not happening. Not a single Democratic vote exists for it in the House. Not a single Democratic vote exists for it in the Senate. It's not going to happen. And judges should not feel intimidated. Period. Full stop.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. I want to talk about one more thing before we head out. I was watching March Madness and I was like, oh, Lord, here we go again with these political ads. I thought we had left at the World Series. But Donald Trump or supporters of Donald Trump are running ads during March Madness.
Yes.
This is a whole new world that I didn't know that Donald Trump did all these fabulous things, including he ends it that he's going to make cancer history. When we know that the Republicans and DOJ and Congress, et cetera, are cutting grants for cancer research and attacking institutions. But it did make me wonder, like, okay, wait a minute, well, where are the Democrats at in terms of the counter messaging? You know, is there a strategy to get on air at any point? You know, how are you all focusing on the fact that there is so much disinformation? They're taking credit for things that haven't happened. They're lying and saying things that are happening that aren't. What is the actual strategy to combat that?
Let me say, we actually are just standing up this week our war room, right? And really focused on four things in particular. One is combating misinformation and disinformation. This is really critical because it's pervasive. It's quite substantial, the amount of misinformation and disinformation the Republicans are putting out there in many non-traditional spaces, right? And so we have to combat that. And the old tactics of cease and desist and suing social media companies, that doesn't work anymore. So we have to find new tactics to actually stop this spread of misinformation. The second piece of that is a daily response where we're responding to the soup du jour. Whatever BS Trump and Musk and the Republicans are putting out, we need to be fiercely responding to with a response by subject matter experts. We're going to be standing up a people's cabinet with people who can respond to whatever Donald Trump and Musk are putting out that day. The third thing is competing in all of these new information spaces, because the reality is broadcast TV. Look, I'm 51 years old. I still, my kids think I'm a dinosaur because I still read a hard copy of a newspaper. The one thing I don't do, my wife and I, we don't watch broadcast TV anymore. I don't know if you do, but most people don't. And as a reality, we need to start recognizing that we need to go where voters are getting their information. I'm a hunter. People ask me all the time, where do you go to hunt? They think I'm going to give up my favorite hunting spot? Hell no. Where do I go to hunt? I go where the deer are. And in this case, we need to go where voters are getting information. And this is the one thing that we learned from this last election. Republicans have been much more sophisticated, the conservative movement, about actually campaigning in all of these spaces, messaging in all these spaces, and going to where voters and others are getting their information. We have to do a better job of that. And the third thing we need to do, and this isn't coming from the leader, although I'm sure he agrees with me, is we got to take off the gloves and throw a punch. And that's my job, because you know what? I've always viewed the role of party leaders at any level, whether you're a state chair, a local chair, a national chair, is to take the low road. So our candidates and elected officials don't always have to throw the punch. They can take the high road and talk about our vision and what we're going to do to improve people's lives. I'm going to take this fight directly to Donald Trump and to Elon Musk and to J.D. Vance. And that's what we're doing right now. That's part of this war room right now, is to make sure we're competing in all these new spaces, and we're doing it aggressively, and we're litigating the case against Donald Trump the right way. Now, as it relates to ads, look, I'm only 6 weeks into this job. Give me some time so we can raise some money and do exactly that. You see what he's chasing, by the way, there? He's chasing demographics that we don't typically go after. They did the same thing last year. They were on all the football games, right? They were in these sports spaces that we weren't necessarily advertising in because we weren't chasing that demographic. And then we wonder, why did we lose so much ground with men, right?
Yeah.
And particularly white men. Well, we're not communicating in those spaces where they're at. Now, I'm not suggesting we do that exclusively. We have to do all of it, right? Yeah. It's part of organizing everywhere. We also need to communicate everywhere. We can't be afraid to be on Fox News, as an example. When I was running for chair, someone beat the crap out of me, some Democrats, because they said, why are you going on Fox News? Why are you trying to appeal to Republican voters? I'm not trying to appeal to Republican voters. There's lots of independent voters that watch Fox News. They deserve to hear our viewpoints just as much as they're hearing the crap that the Republicans are putting out. The reason I say that is we can't be afraid as Democrats to take our message everywhere, in every space, and go after voters and give them a sense of who we are and what we're fighting.
Yeah, but I want to just add that everywhere has to be preaching to the choir. Yes. Because a lot of things that I heard, my show is on Sirius XM Urban View, and people say, well, they don't have to come to Urban View because, they already know how we're going to vote. And I'm like, first of all, not everybody who listens to Urban View votes a certain way, but sometimes Democrats take for granted the fact that they need to come the same way that Donald Trump will call in to Fox and Friends, whatever, consistently, that we need to consistently engage with people that you think you have, because what I like to say is you may be preaching to the choir, but the choir sings.
Yeah.
And so if you give them the sheet music, if you give them the song, those are people that are going to engage, and that engagement is going to multiply. So I just want to put that out there. You can come to Urban View anytime.
Yeah, I look forward to it, Reese, and it's incredibly important. And we have to do two things at the same time. We have to energize the base, and we have to move swing voters in our direction. You got to do both.
Yes.
That's the only way we'll ever be successful as we move forward. Now, with respect to your question, in terms of why is Donald Trump running ads, he can't run again, no matter what he may think, right? He cannot run again. 22nd Amendment, the Constitution, is impossible to change, especially for that guy, right? It's not happening.
Y'all heard that, because a lot of people keep saying, oh, he's going to run again. I'm convinced he's going to run again. But Leader Jeffries is saying.
By the way, it's not happening. And if it does, if he can run again, so can Barack Obama.
That's right.
Let's be clear about that.
Let's have a rematch.
Right. Let's be clear about that. So now the thing is that, so his numbers are tanking. They are collapsing in real time because he was elected to improve the economy. He's failing. He's crashing the economy. He's making life more expensive for everyday Americans, and they're driving us to a Republican recession. And so because his approval ratings are going in the wrong direction, they're going down and costs are going up. They're panicking.
Yeah.
Because the American people are seeing this thing for what it is right now, a failure. That's right. A failure, and we're not even 100 days in.
Yeah.
And we're just going to keep pressing the case on the economy, on healthcare, on taxes, press the case as it relates to the assault on our democracy and the American way of life. And we're going to do it in every possible forum.
Yeah.
So you'll see it on what we call legacy media, but you'll certainly continue to see it on new media, on podcasts, on YouTube shows, on Sirius.
Thank you. I was going to say, y'all read the microphone.
There you go. On satellite radio.
Yeah. Okay.
On social media. We've got to be everywhere, all day, every week, every month. Win the day, win the week, win the month, win the year, and then eventually win the hearts and minds of the American people.
Yeah. And
win the elections that we need to win, so we can end this national nightmare and bring the American dream to life for everyone.
That's right. That's right. Well, the swing voter is the couch voter. 83% of people who did not vote in 2024, according to polls, do not approve of Donald Trump. We can get some of them off the couch.
Yes.
And at the ballot box on April 1st in Wisconsin and in Florida, we might start to end this national nightmare. Okay, we're going to close it out. Chair Martin.
Well, thank you, Reese, for having us. And I just want to say thank you to everyone at home who's tuning in. And remember, it's going to take all of us in this fight, everyone rolling up their sleeves and doing something. You don't have to do everything, but do something right now in this moment. You said there's 8 days left, and there is until this election. So again, I'm going to say, if you want to help us win in Wisconsin, that critical Supreme Court race, and you want to help us move the needle and maybe win those Florida races, text 43367, text volunteer to 43367 to help us out. And then what's after that? Then we build for the next elections. There's 100,000 local elections on the ballot throughout this country right now. School boards, city councils, county boards, mayoralships, you name it, right? In addition to the critical elections in Virginia and New Jersey and those constitutional amendments in other states, there's a lot on the ballot in 25. Let's not look ahead to 26. Let's use 25 to build our organization, to rev up our volunteers, to get them engaged in these races so that when we go into 26, and it's critical that we make Leader Jeffries, Speaker Jeffries, we are already humming along as a party and we're ready for the fight in front of us. So please join me in that.
Thank you, Reese, for hosting us here today and for all that you do to get the information to the people live and clear and direct and powerful. So we appreciate that. And certainly, Ken, thank you for your leadership. I want to thank everybody for tuning in today, for your thoughts, for your ideas, for your inspiration, for your concerns, your critiques of kind of where we are and where we need to go. It all matters, and it's all important. Earlier this month, I had the opportunity to visit Selma for the 60th anniversary of Bloody Sunday. And what struck me about the situation is that John Lewis and all of those civil rights heroes and foot soldiers had no rational reason to believe that they could be successful. Right? In the heart of the bloody Jim Crow South, in one of the most racist counties, Dallas County, in Alabama. But they had courage, they had conviction, and they had character. And they knew they were on the right side of that fight. And they leaned in, they showed up, they spoke up, they stood up, and they were successful. That's what the past has taught us whenever we found ourselves in a difficult moment, a turbulent moment, a backlash moment, which is what we're in right now. And so we look forward to working with everybody to show up, stand up, speak up for what we know is right. And we are going to get to the other side of this and continue America's march toward a more perfect union.
That's right. Well, thank you, fellas.
Thank you.
Thank you all for tuning in.